So when we bring down cholesterol, people that eat healthy fats, low levels of linoleic acid, healthy proteins have manageable levels of LDL cholesterol, but would be considered high on most cardiology risk scores, and they're told to take a statin. And then you see them suffer hormonal issues, cell wall issues, mitochondrial insufficiency, and other consequences, because we can't just study one thing in a vacuum. Humans exist in communities. Cells exist in communities. Some of the worst research that I've ever read on human beings is when we take single cells out of a human, put it in a petri dish, and look how it behaves in a lab as a single organism. But cells exist in communities, just like human beings do. In fact, if you want to cut a human being's life expectancy by 50%, put them in isolation. You'll cut their life expectancy in half.
The environment,
The same is true with cells. So my entire point is that dietary cholesterol intake has nothing to do with serum levels of LDL cholesterol. People that eat the most sugar have the highest amounts of cholesterol and the highest blood fats, and therefore the highest risk for cardiovascular disease. I think that sugar is the root of all evil, not the love of money. And so when you're looking at your blood work and you look at triglyceride, the level of fat in your blood, HDL cholesterol, the healthy cholesterol, which you can actually increase by increasing healthy fats, and you look at the level of LDL cholesterol, it's important not to just look at it in isolation. It's important to look at it in relationship to your level of triglyceride, so you get an indication of how large or how small the cholesterol molecule is. If you took two 5-gallon buckets, let's say, set them right next to each other, they hold the same volume, right? So let's say that they're full of cholesterol. I'll show you how one could be a risk factor for cardiovascular disease and one could be a risk factor for longevity. So if you had one bucket full of tennis balls, okay, and you had another bucket full of tiny, tiny little BBs, same volume. If you dump those tennis balls into the bloodstream, they're very healthy because they're going to bounce off the arterial wall. They're not going to pass through that blood-brain barrier. They're not going to get eaten by a macrophage and start this inflammatory process. But if you dump that bucket full of BBs into the bloodstream, that is very dangerous, right? So small particulate cholesterol